Ada Cecilia Collins Anderson lived a life of many firsts, culminating in an extraordinary legacy of civil rights advocacy and philanthropy in Austin. My real focus is my great appreciation for education, both formal and informal. Education never leaves. It's always the core, the center, she said in a 1983 interview while on ACC's board.
I'm a firm believer in investing in young people and giving them some reason to dream.
Born in 1921 in Pilot Knob, Texas, Ada was the fourth of Walter Gabriel Collins and Cecilia Rucker Collins's 9 children. She grew up on a farm and began her education at Pilot Knob School, a one-room schoolhouse which was built in 1891 by her paternal great-grandfather, Newton Isaac Collins. She attended L.C. Anderson High School, Austin's only high school for African American students during the era of segregation. She graduated at 15 years old. Ada then attended Tillotson College, now Houston-Tillotson University, Austin's oldest institute of higher learning, and the city's only historically Black college, where she earned her bachelor's degree in home economics in 1941.
Heman Marion Sweat was the person who filed who was the plaintiff when Thurgood Marshall and his group filed a case against the University of Texas to admit him to the law school. Thurgood Marshall won that case, and so in 1950, the fall of 1950, he was admitted. They didn't open the entire university at that time. I went to register immediately after he did, as soon as it was open.
In 1951, Ada became the first African American student to enroll in the Graduate School of Library Science, now the School of Information. However, library science was not her first choice. I wanted to get a master's degree in counseling and guidance, and I was not permitted to register in counseling and guidance, she said in an oral history.
The deal was, when I applied, that if it were not offered at Purview, it could be made available to African Americans at the University of Texas at Austin. If it were offered at Purview, then you couldn't take that. You'd have to go to Purview.
She collaborated with a UT professor who taught human development, Dr. Carson McGuire. Dr. McGuire would try to help me work out an application that would pass their test, in other words. And we'd come up with a scheme, and I'd go, and the registrar would turn me back. And we'd go back, and we'd try again. I walked, and I don't want this to sound like a cliche because this is the truth. I walked up those steps so many times, and I would get so angry when I'd read that sign that says, "Ye shall know the truth shall make ye free."
I was given a choice between law, architecture, social work, or library science. I really didn't want any of them, but I wanted to go to school, so I took library science. Wonderful experience.
Ada recounted, "Nobody in the world could have a happier and a more delightful experience as a student in the classes. Now I know a lot of Black people had very different experiences, so I guess I was a lucky one. In the library school, it was a very small group and it was kind of like a family." Despite completing all required courses, she was not given her library science degree because she was unable to complete the field work requirement, since she was denied placement at the Texas State Library.
I completed all the coursework, took additional coursework in library science, and the final thing that I needed to get my degree was to do field work. And the only place that they would send me for field work was to Houston. Well, I had 2 small children. I couldn't go. It wasn't a practical thing for me to do. So I never actually got the degree.
This experience of racial discrimination cemented Ada's commitment to fighting for civil rights and equal opportunities for minorities in Austin and throughout the state. She later returned to UT and earned a master's degree in educational psychology. Professionally, Ada worked for the Texas Employment Commission as an employment counselor and labored tirelessly to improve the wages and working conditions of Black domestic workers. She successfully led peaceful protests against a segregated skating rink and coordinated voter registration campaigns that mobilized thousands throughout Texas. In a 1982 landmark election to the Austin Community College Board, Ada was the first African American to win a county-wide election in Travis County. She facilitated 2 exhibitions of African American artists at the LBJ Library and Museum, and she organized and directed the Leadership Enrichment Arts Program, LEAP, for more than 10 years, which introduced underserved African American youth to the arts.
I really think probably the most important thing that I've ever done is the LEAP program. I know what arts will do for young people in developing their minds, their creativity.
Among her many accolades, Ada was awarded entrance in the Texas Black Women's Hall of Fame and the African American Women's Hall of Fame, both in 1986. In 1992, she was named Woman of the Year by the Women's Symphony League of Austin. Houston Tillotson awarded Ada the Honorary Doctorate of Humane Letters in recognition of her dedicated service and generosity. And the University of Texas at Austin recognized Ada's contributions to the Austin community and beyond by presenting her with the University of Texas Community Legacy Award and the prestigious Distinguished Alumnus Award. And it is our pleasure today at the School of Information to finally posthumously award Ada the master's degree she should have received in 1953 in recognition of her academic achievement in what was then the Library Science program and is now the Master of Science in Information Studies.